Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. And this segment we have with us Daniel Reynolds, senior editor of The Advocate magazine. Hello, Mr. Daniel.
How are you?
Pride.
Hi.
Thanks for hanging with us today.
Oh, thank you for letting me hang with you. It's my pleasure.
We're super appreciative. So where are you? You're not in New York, right? You're in LA, is that right?
Yes, I am in West Hollywood.
Everybody is in LA.
I
What
know,
are we,
literally.
like, what are we doing still? Are we the trash left of New York?
No.
No, definitely not.
We're the heart of New York.
Yeah.
So
and
Daniel,
especially right now, I don't want to go into infection rates very much, but I'd much rather be in New York at this moment.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's why we're in New York.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So
We
you're
have all the
in,
TikTokers partying in the hills.
I
Right,
saw
exactly.
that. We'll talk about that in a moment because that's something I really want to get your opinion on. That's a hot topic for me. Go ahead.
well, I was just curious, Daniel, you're an East Coaster, originally from New Jersey. So when did you make the move to become the West Coaster? I'm asking for personal reasons, just because I'm trying to figure out my life.
Word.
Oh, sure, yeah. I can't believe it's been this long ago, but it was in 2012. I went to Fordham in New York for graduate school in English, and I ended up getting an internship at The Advocate, where I drove across the country, started up here, and I haven't left since. So.
Okay.
That's kind of what we did, 10 years ago.
Yeah, we
10
just had our
years.
10-year anniversary from moving to Texas to the big old city to chase our dreams, and we're still chasing, you know?
Oh yeah,
We are
I know that
still chasing. Yeah, right?
It's an uphill battle.
It is an uphill battle. So do you regret anything? Do you think you're like where the good Lord split you?
Well, I mean, they're so different, those LA, New York conversations. I miss my family because they're all in the New York, New Jersey area. So it's,
Yeah.
especially right now, it feels like, oh my gosh, there's this country separating us, and I can feel the distance. But I love Los Angeles for its weather and for the entertainment industry, and for all of just the amazing people I've met in this past almost decade. So, I'm really happy here, actually.
Amazing.
That's good.
So for the listeners out there that don't necessarily know, what are your topics that you typically cover for The Advocate?
Sure. So my beat is pretty much entertainment in the LGBTQ space, naturally, but we're a very small team. There's only about 6 of us in digital. So in a given day, I can be writing about politics or health or, anything under the sun, really. So I enjoy that too, because it gives my day diversity, and it exposes me just to a variety of issues that I never would have, even thought that I was interested in previously.
And how do you feel about the recent announcement of Biden's VP pick?
The hot topic.
Hot topic.
I was so excited, and
Good.
I realized that throughout this whole year in this campaign that I had just been feeling fear mostly.
Yeah.
Preach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just afraid for Biden and afraid for the country, and I think Kamala injected a lot of enthusiasm into the news cycle, and just seeing like a lot of our readers are very excited. I know we have a lot of members of our team really love Kamala. She has a very strong record of LGBTQ support, as does Biden. So I think they're a formidable team, and I'm excited for them, and I'm excited for the United States going forward.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think that there's
Mhm.
been so much disrespect, from the current administration. And I see you recently wrote an amazing article about the Trump campaign lawyer misgendered Pennsylvania's trans health secretary. Can you talk about that a little bit for our listeners who might not have got a chance to check out the article, and how you feel that Biden and Harris being on the ticket and hopefully winning can definitely change the narrative of our country?
Mhm.
Absolutely. So one of the leaders in the fight against COVID-19 in the United States is Dr. Rachel Levine, who is the Secretary of Health in Pennsylvania, and she also happens to be a transgender woman. She's been doing amazing work. She's also just such a remarkable human being who's had such a distinguished career in health. And, this week we saw the top lawyer in the Trump campaign misgender her in a tweet. It was done so purposefully. It was just sickening to me, and yet another example of how the Trump administration has attacked the LGBTQ community, transgender people specifically. It's not surprising, but I mean, it is just another reminder of what the stakes are this fall and why each and every one of us needs to vote, you know, not just politicians, but down people who just represent bigotry in their, I mean, everyday social media posts.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I definitely agree. I think that for me, to see so much hurt coming from that administration, the things that they say and do, especially like you said, to the LGBTQ community, the Black community, the Hispanic community. And it's like, when is enough going to be enough? When are we finally going to see that? You know, I thought it would be enough when they made fun of a disabled person, and that wasn't enough. When they said they would grab a woman by her genitals, that wasn't enough. And, you know, we still have that base behind him. So I agree with you. I hope that the change comes, and I hope that people do get out there and vote and realize how important this is, and realize that all lives are at stake at this point. If they want to go with the all lives matters, well, at this point, all lives are at stake. So they should do something.
So,
I mean, I agree with Biden. I think we're fighting for the soul of this country.
We are.
Yeah.
And it's in policy, but it's also in performance. When you have people at the top who are modeling racist, anti-LGBTQ behavior, it gives other people license to do it, and we've seen people lose their lives as a result. So
Yeah.
So a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of people are saying with the Trump administration that we've been set back 50 or plus years in America. If Biden and Harris do get elected, what are some of those things that they're going to have to course correct from the Trump administration, and just to make sure that we get back on track and have to make up those lost 50 years?
Well, where do we begin?
Right.
What's amazing about Biden is he has a comprehensive LGBTQ plan already in place. So I don't have exactly all the stats and bullet points in front of me, but I know that things like rolling back, you know, the ban on transgender members of the military, rolling back these license to discriminate laws, you know, that are pervading federal contractors now, restoring health care to our transgender brothers and sisters, fighting for the Equality Act. These are all things that are on the forefront of the Biden-Harris ticket. So I'm excited for the possibility of an administration who prioritizes those issues instead of the polar opposite. So I think that's really, those are the broad brushstrokes, but just the beginning of the healing that can be done and the potential progress that can be made in the years ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
I think also for our souls, you know, I think that so many LGBTQ people have been under so much stress throughout the past 4 years, fearing for their lives, fearing for their futures. And I think that hope is something that will be given back to them, you know, as a result of the outcome of this election.
Well, for me personally, I'm just tired of living in a shell. I mean, my whole life, I've been this turtle, being scared to like come out of my shell, and then Obama gets elected, and I can stick my head out a little bit, and I can feel like I'm human to be married to the person I love. But then Trump gets elected again, so my head goes back a little bit. My whole life has been this in and out scenario. So do you, Daniel, think that will ever end for a person of LGBTQ, or will we always be these sad little tortoises just wondering, can we like de-shell, if you will?
Yeah, that's, you know, I think it's an interesting question, because I think that there will always be places in our lifetime, sadly, where it won't be safe, right, to be an LGBTQ person, a person of color. I think that stigma is something that we're going to have to fight our whole lives. But what I noticed with the election was, you know, I had friends, people of color especially, who were afraid to travel, you know. the people who were queer expressed fears about holding hands in places that they thought previously that it had been safe. And so really the future is about restoring that trust, right? That not always looking over that shoulder, not withdrawing into the shell, because being out and proud, as we know from our movement, is one of the key parts of why we've been successful. We don't enact progress by hiding, by staying in our show. We do it by using our voice, by using our visibility, and by being as queer and amazing as you know, as we are and have always been. So
exactly. That's why I liked this year's Pride a lot more, because it was like a reminder of like, this is what it, you know, we have to do. It's not all just about the parties and stuff like that.
Right. That's why things like Outfest are so important. So we know that they announced that they're doing virtual, which is amazing that we can still keep it alive. So how do you feel about how important it is that like things like Outfest continue on regardless of the pandemic?
Oh, amazing. And you know, Outfest was actually one of the first things I did when I arrived in Los Angeles in 2012 was I went to opening night of the Outfest Film Festival.
That's awesome.
And the Vito documentary was screening, which was about the life of Vito Russo, who was gay rights activist, and he wrote The Celluloid Closet, you know, which was all about decoding all of the queerness that had existed throughout film history. And immediately I fell in love, and I recognized the importance of queer film and this community of people who were brought together to celebrate films like this and to fight for our representation. So I was really worried about Outfest. Actually, I kept checking my email. I'm like, okay, like what's gonna happen? Like, are they gonna have an event this year? So to see it happen virtually is amazing, and I think it's a model for other film festivals, I think, moving forward. And I especially love the driving component too. So people who are in Los Angeles can go to Malibu. Apparently they've set up a site there where you can drive your car in and see for 2 weekends some of these films on a screen, which I'm looking forward to because I've never actually done a drive-in movie, and
they're so fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of 50 years back, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
now we're doing the drive-ins again.
But
So
what I'm seeing a lot is like the drag and drive-ins is a big thing nowadays, and that's how like a lot of drag queens, especially like the famous Rue girls, are making that coin. It's like we got to figure something out.
Right.
So it's like
you can't just stand still.
Well, people are finding different ways to create content, which is kind of what we were talking about in the beginning about TikTok. And TikTok was definitely created as a space for people to create content, to really put themselves out there. As you saw, our current president wants to eliminate TikTok. I guess he feels like they're making fun of him. I don't know. But
well, there's a caveat to that.
Yeah.
I'll let Daniel, I'm sure.
Right. Well, yes, and I'm aware of that one. But do you think, and you were talking about the parties that they're having right now in the Hollywood Hills, is this, I mean, I've been following this for a while, and I'm just perplexed how TikTok is funding these kids to do this. Like, what do you think about all this and how they're still partying? And I mean, I saw a house the other day that had over 200 people in it. And on social media, and TikTok was basically saying, we endorse this. Like, this is fine. They're ordering all the food and the booze. And I'm just like, what is the end goal? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Tyler Oakley because he called out a lot of the people that were partying.
Good, yeah.
And giving them some much deserved shame for creating situations where people could get sick. So thank you, Tyler, for doing that. You know, the issue there is that in order for these platforms to thrive, they need content, right? And so if there's no parties and there's no social interaction, then all of a sudden you don't have any content. And for a lot of these kids, you know, they're maybe 18 years old or younger, right? And they've moved their whole lives. They're now these rising social media stars, and they have a momentum behind them. And if you lose that momentum, then you might lose potentially a career or a lot of money. So, you know, especially when you're that young, first of all, you're, you know, developmentally, your brain isn't all there. Right. So you're not always, you know, behaving the most rationally. But also social media itself and the algorithms that are present, right, and all of these different platforms, they reward activity that isn't always beneficial to us in the real world, as we've seen, you know, with certain elections. So I'm not surprised that this is happening, but LA is kind of the gathering place for influencers and for TikTokers, for YouTubers. So, you know, I'm scared for them, and I'm scared for our community because, as you know, Los Angeles is still a hotspot in this country for the
It's
coronavirus.
very
So.
it's very upsetting, you know, with the TikTok thing. A couple of months ago, their news released, and what I thought was so interesting about that is it was definitely something that the kids themselves kind of did themselves. They put themselves out there, but I'm like, you guys are children and you're putting nudes out there that may have been taken when you were 16, 15 years old, which is child pornography. And you're putting it out there on the internet, and it's very dangerous. And I think that it definitely speaks to how social media has, as you said, some of these kids, it's like if they don't have that, their whole career could go away. And it's very interesting how TikTok is kind of promoting that. They released a statement when the news came out, and they're like, oh, you know, sorry about, you know, kind of thing. And it seems such a ploy, and I don't get
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Daniel, how do you feel about the current conversations that Microsoft is having with TikTok and with their hopes of purchasing the platform? Do you think that is a Trump tactic in order to control the social platform because he has a relationship with the Microsoft CEO? Does that raise flags for you, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, anything the Trump administration does raises flags for me, first of all. So
Right. Word.
So if Trump is endorsing it, then I'm like, okay, then I don't know. This
Stay
is
away.
such a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I can only theorize, right? I don't know anything, you know, in depth or, you know, confidential about these talks. But, you know, I know that Trump has a very nationalistic view. And I think that, you know, we saw it with Grindr as well. You know, there was a forced sale of Grindr from a Chinese company to American investors. And so trying to keep American, you know, social media American just seems counterintuitive to what the internet is. You know, this community is international, and so much of the innovation and genius that happens is because we have this exchange between different countries. And it's actually a way that, you know, the United States can model LGBTQ equality for the world, right? So, you know, in terms of the Microsoft deal, you know, as long as people get to keep expressing themselves, but, you know, definitely still suspicious.
Yeah. So Ashley brought up Outfest a little bit ago. Are you looking forward to anything that's going to be unique? Obviously, it's going to be virtual, but is there anything that you are like just so excited to hear, see, touch, smell?
Oh my God. I mean, I love like so much at Outfest, but there were a few that caught my eye, and I haven't seen them yet, but I've definitely tagged them. The first would be the opening night film, which is The Nowhere Inn. And that's starring Annie Clark, who's at St. Vincent, and also Carrie Brownstein. So, you know, those are two artists I really love, and I don't know anything else about it, but I'm just excited to see St. Vincent and Carrie Brownstein together in a movie. There's a few other interesting projects too. The other is the closing night film, which is called Two Eyes. And that's basically a series of short stories in the American West about different LGBTQ people living there. So this is kind of a territory we haven't seen explored before. And, you know, Kate Bornstein, who's like a pioneering trans author and activist, is in it. So really excited to see that. In terms of comedy, there is a movie called Shiva Baby, and it's about the relationship of a Jewish sex worker and her mother.
And okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, and it's from like I think it's like a first-time filmmaker, but it just sounds something like I haven't seen before, and it does. To be really
I'm engaged.
Right, already just that one sentence. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right, like sold. And then the last one I'm looking at is Monsoon, which is it's a film about basically being it's a British Vietnamese man who goes back to his birth country for the first time. He's a refugee, and it's a queer story, and it's also starring Henry Golding, who of course was the star of Crazy Rich Asians. So I'm excited to see him in a role like that and tackle that on. And it's also from the director of Lilting, which was also an amazing film that came out a few years ago. So those are some of my top highlights.
That's so exciting.
Well, we can't wait to watch.
Yeah, all those sounds
of them.
interesting, amazing.
Yeah, and whenever you watch them, if you want to give us the like inside scoop of the hot goss,
Mm-hmm.
let us know.
Oh yeah, I'm just so excited just to like watch films for like 2 weeks and talk to some of these great filmmakers, and it really is one of the highlights of my year. So yeah,
It puts you back into like makes things feel like it's normal again, because with everything going on right now in the world, I think it's like we're all looking for some sense of normalcy, and I think that does it, and that's amazing that you're doing that.
Oh yeah, and escape. I mean, movies bring us out of the place we're in, right?
Yes.
So, I might be just sitting in my living room again, but, I'm getting to go to, different countries and seeing different people and, stepping outside of myself. So
Yeah, well, while you're stepping outside of yourself, why not check out Pride the series on Amazon? You might as well check us out.
Oh, I definitely want to now. I mean, it's so fantastic, and yeah.
Daniel, tell our listeners where they can find you on social.
Oh, sure, yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's my handle is at DNL Reynolds, REYNOLDS, and same on both.
Perfect.
Yay. Well, thank
And
you.
of course, you can also go to advocate.com and see our
Right. I was like, I can check you out on the Advocate.
Just scroll through those articles.
Right.
So Daniel, thank you so much for always bringing us the hot entertainment news for the LGBT community and representing us so well. We appreciate you taking time to talk to us today. This has been amazing.
Oh my God, this has been honestly the highlight of my day. Thank you all.
Oh, yay.
Thank you.
And shout out to the Advocate for being an advocate.
He's coming up with these. I love it.
Thank you, Daniel. Be safe.
Bye,
Thank
Daniel.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.